Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Mav. Today we're going to have a conversation about some sneaky transphobic ideology. And this comes from a specific situation in my life. And I'll tell you that this was kind of like prompted by a comment that I received on my YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe. It's Mav Magick. You can easily find me there. So I'm gonna read the comment to you, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about my thoughts about it, and then kind of give some truths to balance out that nonsense. So the comment that I received said, "Oh, by the way, the comment was on a video that was specifically talking about just me talking about my kind of like gender discovery and within being non-binary. Like, anyway, you can find the video on my channel." But yeah, this was the comment. It's short and sweet. Just said, "Wow, too much idle time, LOL." And I just thought that was really funny because this person probably thinks like, oh, this person just has a lot of idle time on their hands to sit around and think about their gender. That's a waste of time. This is my assumption. I'm not living in this person's head, but this is how I'm kind of thinking that they were thinking. And it's not the first time that I've had someone say something like this to me. Talking with my family, I've gotten this a lot. So, and a reason why this is so important to me is because my family comes from Haiti, right? The island of Haiti. My parents came here both at different times, so they've lived in that third world country for part of their life, and so they understand what it's like to kind of move to this country and have more privilege than some other people did have. So I'll just say my dad, when I talk to him about my gender and stuff like that, he'll make comments about things kind of like, people in Haiti who are struggling, they're not going to be having these thoughts about gender. It's a luxury for you to be having these thoughts about your gender and going through this whole thing and being able to say like, oh, I'm non-binary. That's a privilege that some people don't have. And I'm gonna get to all of that later, don't worry. But it's this idea that if I was underprivileged in some situation, that I wouldn't have the time to think about all of this gender stuff. And I've gotten it from other people in my family as well. And I just need to say that this ideology is like really ignorant. It is harmful, and bottom line, it's really just not true. It assumes so much about people when you really truly don't understand like what you're even saying. So I'm going to kind of offer up some truths to balance out this lie and kind of talk a little bit about why this ideology is harmful and just some of my opinions on it. So the first truth is that anybody from any socioeconomic status or country or anything can be trans, right? There is no limit to the kinds of person that go through a gender journey or more gender discovery. And there are like specific other YouTube channels that talk about this, and other, I think, platforms, other groups that talk about this very specifically. Two of them that come to mind are, I believe it's a YouTube channel just called like Transgender Haiti or Trans Haiti or something like that, where it's just like some trans people who live in Haiti who just talk about their experience as trans people who are living in a third world country. So that's obviously debunking this lie just immediately right there. And then also I remember being on I think Reddit not too long ago and reading about a group of trans people who are refugees. I don't remember what country they were from. But both of these examples make a pretty important statement. They basically say that it doesn't matter if you're living in a country where you might be like poor or something like that. It doesn't matter if you're going through war or really difficult external circumstances. That doesn't stop a person from being trans, from having this experience with incongruence with their gender, the gender that the sex that they were born with. and then now having this kind of desire to explore gender specifically. This is not something that happens when you live in the United States. And then also I think this ideology slips into some of that, like, that's just white people shit when it comes to anything LGBTQ related, which is obviously just another, like, problem that I think goes on in the Black community. And yeah, and I think my family portrays that, but they use kind of the idea that, like, you know, their family back in Haiti isn't going to be doing that gender stuff. So yeah, we must be privileged if we're living here. But yeah, it is a known fact that tons of different kinds of people are transgender, and it does not matter. Like, the money you have doesn't make you able to, like, be more trans. And the only way that it could is because you might have money for surgeries or things like that. And that is a privilege that some people do have, to have the finances to medically transition. But that's not the point here. The point is that people are saying that, like, thinking about your gender means you have a lot of time on your hands, which is just not the truth. Okay. The next truth number 2, is that gender is, like, your gender identity is a fundamental aspect of your personhood, right? So people who aren't trans, they don't have to spend time, like, discovering this aspect of themselves. So they just think that everybody has this, or everybody is just okay to just go on with their life, right? But that is their kind of, like, cis privilege, right? Because they're cis, they don't have to spend time thinking about their gender, so they assume that I shouldn't have to spend time thinking about my gender either. But that's obviously coming from a place where they're having an experience and they're kind of projecting that onto me, which is just not my experience, and it's not yours either if you are a trans or gender non-conforming person who is watching this. And by the way, I am very much talking about trans people here, but I think if you are kind of gender expansive, gender non-conforming, a lot of this conversation will fit to you as well. But yeah, like, for me, when I discovered my gender identity, it was very illuminating, and it really, part of me felt like my life started when I found out that I was trans, and I got to kind of, like, choose how to move forward in my life, because there was a lot of before that I was moving away from. So this seemed like a whole new experience. But yeah, I really felt like I was able to start living my life after I understood that I was trans. Now, and I think there are several reasons for this in addition to me discovering my gender identity, but on top of those things, with gender identity, I'm now in a place where I can actually, like, think about my future and, like, plan for my future. For several years, planning my future just seemed like something I could not really do. I really had a struggle doing that. I couldn't see myself in the future, but now I can, because I feel like I have a better concept of who I am as a human being, as a person, and that helps me understand how to move forward in my life. So this is not, like, a luxury for me. This is a fundamental aspect of me developing as a human being. And that is true for you as well. If you are doing this research, or you're doing this exploration for yourself, this is not a waste of time. This does not mean that you should be doing something better with your time than exploring your gender identity. No, this is a vital part of you exploring your personhood. So please continue to just explore, right? I'm not telling you to be gender non-conforming or anything like that. I'm just telling you to explore and see what's going on for yourself. Okay. And my last kind of point here is basically that exploring your gender identity is a sacred thing. You know, it's really important, and for you as a particular person, and I think it's something that we should not take for granted if we are able to explore our gender identity. So now I want to talk about a little bit of a paradox, because on one hand, I think that gender identity discovery is not a luxury. It's a fundamental aspect of people discovering their personhood. But at the same time, I'm able to understand that for some people to explore their gender and express their gender outwardly in the world is a bit of a luxury. And I say this for a couple of reasons. And the first one being that anything that's, I guess, under the LGBTQ umbrella in certain countries can be punishable by, I think, intense forms of shame, imprisonment, and even death, right? So we have to understand that in America, it's not a law that, like, if we are seen, I mean, at least not right now, it's not a law that if we're seen being queer or gender queer or something like that, then we have to be killed, right? That's not something that's going on here. So I do know that it is a privilege for people to kind of be expressive about their gender in this country, because other people don't have that same right. So I think that is one reason why we can kind of feel blessed, if you do resonate with that word, that we have the ability to kind of explore this whole gender thing. And the other reason why I think that I understand that some of this can feel like a luxury is because, personally for me, coming from like a pretty like fundamentalist Christian home, I would have never ever expected to be able to have these kinds of conversations and these kinds of thoughts about myself and about my gender. So it feels like a prize or something. Like, I wasn't lucky enough to have that there, but now I'm like really lucky to be able to explore my gender, right? I was in too of an impressive environment to even like make room for those kinds of thoughts, which is really interesting, because sometimes I think trauma and being kind of in a zone of trauma can make you forget that is an important part of your personal development, because you're just so focused on survival. So when you do get out of that survival state, then you are able to do more things in terms of self-expression, self-discovery, in terms of gender and other things in your life. So I'm able to understand that there are two sides a little bit to this conversation, that it is not a luxury at all. And I've said this before, it's not a luxury for you to be able to explore your gender. But at the same time, like, when we think about, I guess, in relation to other people's experiences, that we might be able to see how we might be lucky to be able to have some of these conversations openly about gender and gender identity, sexuality, etc. So yeah, these are my thoughts about this whole thing. If you want to have more conversations about this, if this is something that you're struggling with and you want to work with someone, please reach out to me. Send me a message. I've got all my contact information below in the description. And then at the same time, if you want to kind of do something like join a group of other people who might be working through some of these things, and you can go ahead and join my Facebook group. I'll also make sure to put that in the link as well, or link that. I'll make sure to link that below as well. So if you, just go ahead and do those things. I will, can't wait to hear back from you, and I'll see you tomorrow, or see you soon. Okay, peace and love. See ya.